Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's event, Microsoft GitHub Copilot Masterclass, Learn AI-Powered Coding. Presenting today's topic is Anupama Natarajan. With over 20 years of hands-on experience in cloud, data, and AI consulting, she brings a wealth of experience in designing and developing cutting-edge solutions. As a Microsoft MVP for data platform and artificial intelligence and a certified trainer, she is passionate about sharing knowledge and tackling complex business challenges with innovative Microsoft technologies. Anupama is also the founder and organizer of several tech communities, including Wellington Azure AI Meetup, SQLS Saturday Wellington, and Wellington Data Management and Analytics Meetup. Please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the Data and AI Practice Area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session will explore the core capabilities of Microsoft GitHub Copilot and learn how AI can make coding faster and easier. In this session, you'll see how GitHub Copilot helps you write code by suggesting lines, completing functions, and saving you time on repetitive tasks. Whether you're working alone or with a team, this masterclass will show you how to improve your code, boost productivity, and make the most of AI in your development workflow. In addition, participants will get guidance on effectively preparing for the AZ 2007 certification course and exam in today's session. Now I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hey, Anupama, thank you so much for joining us today.
So thanks, Tracy, and welcome everyone. And I'm Anupama Natarajan, and I'm a Microsoft MVP for Data Platform and AI, and as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. So I come up with 20 plus years of experience working in the IT industry, so predominantly around the data and the AI space. So I'm happy to welcome you all for this particular Microsoft GitHub Copilot Masterclass. And here we are going to spend the time to learn about AI powered coding and how this is going to help a lot of you in terms of writing code faster, smarter, and as well as with fewer errors. So before we get into this webinar, so what I want to talk to you about is the agenda for today's session. So we'll start with a quick understanding about GitHub Copilot. So what GitHub Copilot is all about. So whether you are a solo developer or if you are part of a large data engineering team, or if you are pretty much like trying to be anywhere like in the software development lifecycle, because your role can fit in any part of the software development lifecycle, we are going to look at how you can use GitHub Copilot so that like it can understand the context, and it also can provide you meaningful code suggestions or even write code for you. We are going to keep this particular session highly interactive with live demos as well as some practical tips so that when you actually finish this webinar and go back to your desk, you can immediately apply whatever you have learned straight away without any further delay or anything. So the key topics we are going to look at is a quick introduction to GitHub Copilot. Of course, that's the way how we are going to start. Then I'm going to walk you through what it takes to set up and integrate GitHub Copilot. So we are going to just look at like, okay, if I want to use a GitHub Copilot in a particular IDE like VS Code, what it takes to set up. Then we will jump on to looking at how to write effective prompts. And so all these topics, like of course, I'll be giving you side by side an introduction as well as a demo. And when we talk about prompts particularly, right, so why prompts are really important. So you can ask a question to GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot is going to provide you with a response. So where does prompt engineering comes into the picture? So sometimes like you have to convey exactly what you are looking for to GitHub Copilot so that it can tailor the response according to your needs. And that's where prompt engineering comes into the picture. And I will show you how you can write effective prompts to get the best out of GitHub Copilot. Then we are going to jump onto the topic around Copilot for Teams. So when I talk about Teams, this is not about Microsoft Teams. This is talking about the teams, like this is the group of people that work within an organization. So why this is really important, right? So when I touched upon saying like, okay, Copilot is GitHub Copilot, a lot of people think it's only for developers. Of course, it like it writes code. It is going to do a lot of things that the developer do in their day-to-day life. But when I particularly talk about GitHub Copilot, Copilot can also be used by the other personas in the software development lifecycle. So whether you are a business analyst writing user stories, or whether you are a developer who is writing code, or whether you are a QA person writing test cases, or whether you are going to be like a DevOps person taking care of deployment, or whether you are going to be like a support person who is going to support the solution ongoing. So each one of these personas can use GitHub Copilot for improving the productivity of their activities. And that's what the Copilot for Teams is all about. Then we are going to look at specifically from a developer perspective how we can boost productivity as well as improve the quality of your code using GitHub Copilot. So Copilot is not about just writing the code. Copilot is also about like, okay, if you have an existing code, how do we improve the quality of the code? And also like how do we reduce, sometimes like you can optimize the code, right? So one way of optimizing it, looking at it like a particular function would have been written in 20 lines. So how do we just reduce it so it can be reduced to 2 or 3 lines, but it can still do the same functionality. And we will look at how Copilot can assist us with that scenario. And finally, like towards the end of the session, we are going to look at some best practices and responsible use of GitHub Copilot. And I'll also share you with some resources that you can take back after this webinar so that you can go through those resources and get a bit more familiarized with GitHub Copilot. And of course, I can take the Q&A towards the end of the session. So with that note, without any further delay, let us straight away get into our first topic around a bit of understanding about Copilot. So what is GitHub Copilot is all about? So GitHub Copilot is actually built on the OpenAI's Codex model. So basically it is a model which has been trained on billions of lines of publicly available code. So here we are talking here about GitHub public repositories and any repositories that are open, right? And so that's what basically like the model is trained with. And that's the model that we are going to interact with asking for our questions. Um, the cool thing about GitHub Copilot is like you can ask a question and it can write a code. And also as you are writing the code, it can predict that what you want to type next, similar to we have autocomplete, right? But this will be a far more advanced than a normal autocomplete. So normally autocomplete is will try to predict just that completing that line, that sentence, right? But GitHub Copilot is intelligent enough. Like if I start to write a function, halfway through, like it knows, like, okay, I know how to complete this function, and it will give me the code for the completed function, and it's up to me to whether to accept it or reject it. It also provides capabilities by looking at the file that you are editing. Sometimes you may have a file that is opened in VS Code. And what it can do is GitHub Copilot is clever enough when you're asking asking something like, for instance, write a code for me, or just asking saying like, okay, write some documentation related to the code. It knows the context is based on the current file that is open. And also like it is going to provide you context aware suggestions so that like it is going to facilitate you, and which we will be looking at in our demo shortly. So if you start having a Python file, right? So when you're asking to write a piece of code, it knows like you have got a Python file. So it is not going to write it in C#. It knows, okay, so now I have to provide the code in Python. And that's what when I mean by context aware stuff. And we'll talk about that a bit more as we go along. And also it seems seamlessly integrates with variety of IDEs. I talked about like VS Code, but also like it integrates with Visual Studio, JetBrains, and also like various other IDEs that are available in the market. So the likes of, if you're a Java developer, right, it integrates with IntelliJ. So you will be able to use GitHub Copilot using with IntelliJ. And also like it learns a lot of patterns. So you may be asking about like how does GitHub Copilot knows about the best practices and the guidelines that are applicable for software development, because it is reading from a lot of public code repositories, and these are open source code which has been written taking into account of best practices and guidelines into consideration. So that's why the recommendations that you are going to get from GitHub Copilot, it is going to be of really high quality. So I can quickly walk you through in terms of like how to get started with the GitHub Copilot next, because then it is easy for me to just show you a simple example of how you can ask a question to Copilot and how it can respond to you with a response. So to do that, we have to install and we have to integrate Copilot with our IDE. So this IDE can be whichever your preferable one is. What I'm going to demonstrate is the GitHub Copilot extension with VS Code. So VS Code is, as you all know, this is a cross-platform IDE that Microsoft provides it for you for free. And what you need to do is to install VS Code, and then you sign in to create a GitHub account. Again, you can set that up for free. And then you need to install the GitHub Copilot extension in VS Code. I'll shortly show you the live demonstration in using VS Code itself. But typically, like this is how it will be. The extensions will be appearing. Search for GitHub Copilot extension, and you can go ahead and install the Copilot extension. And that's what you have to do basically to get started with Copilot. Once installed, you can tweak a lot of settings, like when you would like to show inline suggestions, how Copilot will interact with your existing tools. And also like we have different flavors of GitHub Copilot also, because You can use it. You have a free version, and also there is a pro version and enterprise versions that are available, which comes up with additional capabilities and features. So, but for now, like if you want to even try with the free version, just sign up for a GitHub account and then go ahead and download VS Code and install the GitHub Copilot extension. So let us quickly look at that, right? So how does my GitHub Copilot extension is going to be appearing? So this is my Visual Studio Code, as you can see here. And what I have got in here is like a blank Visual Studio. So I have just launched it, haven't done much. So this is my extensions tab. So if I navigate here, so here I need to go and look for GitHub Copilot. So as you can see, I have already installed GitHub Copilot. So you can see that. So in your case, if you haven't installed it, it gives you an option with install rather than an uninstall here. Just click on install button and then pretty much like a Copilot is installed and it is available. And then the next part is like basically you need to sign up with GitHub Copilot. And that you can see right at the bottom here. So here I have already logged in. Otherwise, it will show you an icon here to say, can you sign in with your GitHub account? So one of the prerequisites I was talking about is to have a GitHub account. So you'll be signing up with that account, and then you'll get to see you can start utilizing Copilot from there on. Right at the top, you can see this is the GitHub Copilot chat. So there are two ways how you can interact with the GitHub Copilot. One is interacting in an inline fashion, and we'll talk about that shortly. And the other one is using the chat interface. So here you can ask the question and then Copilot is going to provide the answer. So there are multiple ways that you can interact with GitHub Copilot using VS Code. So what I'm going to do is quickly using GitHub Copilot, and then we will be able to just do certain aspects in here. So let me close this window, get back to my file section. So I'll go ahead and create a new file. So maybe cool. So I just got it as a hello world.python. So it can be any file that you can create if you want to create a C# file or a PowerShell. So the power of GitHub Copilot is it can write code and in any sort of languages, and we'll talk about that in subsequent slides. So here, as soon as you created a file, and this is what when I say it is with an inline. So you can open a chat using Control I, or you can select a language using the shortcut keys, or you can fill with a template to get started. So let us type Control I. So here automatically my inline message comes in terms of what you want Copilot to do. I can ask Copilot like write a program, print hello world. So that's it. So as simple as such. Um, there is a variety of models that you can use within GitHub Copilot, right? So here, the default model that we are using is GPT 4.1, but you have the other models that are also available. So including GPT-5, which was announced recently, and you have the preview version of the model available in VS Code for you to utilize. And as you can see here, you can just try switch over to different models and you can compare and contrast exactly like how you want this to see the outputs, because sometimes some models can give you better outputs than the other models. And if you want to compare and contrast that, you can go ahead and easily do that here. Cool. So let me go ahead and complete this. So it is thinking and it is going to write a piece of code for me in terms of printing my hello world. There you go. So I can go ahead and accept it. So it's as simple as such, right? So this is just helping you to get started with GitHub Copilot. So it may sound simple, but even to understand what is the syntax for printing a statement in Python, you don't need to worry about it. Like a GitHub Copilot will help you in terms of sorting this out. So if you are getting started something simple, I would say just go ahead with something like a hello world example, so that you can first thing is you can make sure GitHub Copilot extensions have been installed successfully, and then it will help you to get started. Cool. So that's the first part in terms of how do you go about and start working with GitHub Copilot. Okay, so as I told you, right, so the second aspect of using GitHub Copilot is more around how do I write effective prompts? Because writing effective prompts is really important because if you're not able to convey what you are having in your mind, then it is not going to be able to provide a proper response you won't be able to get a proper response from GitHub Copilot. So that's why writing effective prompts is really a key thing to get high quality code suggestions from Copilot. So think about like these are like the conversations that you are going to have with AI. So that's why you have to be more specific in terms of what is the goal that you're trying to achieve, what are the inputs, what are the expected outputs, and if you provide this information, then Copilot is going to give you better suggestions that is going to match with a variety of things. And that is the key point for you to understand. So to repeat it again, you have to be more specific with your goals, your inputs, as well as your expected outputs. And always make sure like if you are asking questions that are related to multiple files within the VS Code, keep the relevant files open so that Copilot will have much more broader context about your project. And we will see that shortly. So it is more around like asking a question versus opening a file and asking a question are a bit different. So let me explain you what I really mean. So if we go back to our scenario in here, right? So here, when I was about to type a prompt, one of the question that I was asking in here is like, okay, I didn't say like write a program in Python. What I just said was like, okay, just print hello world, right? So write a piece of code to print hello world. And it automatically decided like, oh, okay, I'm going to provide this in Python. So how did Copilot know that it has to write it in Python? Because if I typically ask any question without specifying the programming language, it will just attempt to just come up with any programming language, right? So how did Copilot understood like it has to write the code in Python? It's because of the file that I have got. So in the file, I have got an extension .py, so which is basically a Python file. So because I got the file available and kept it open here, so Copilot was able to understand the context like I'm working on a Python file, which means the expectation is whatever code it has to write, it has to be in Python. And that's how it got into that scenario in terms of how to write the code better in Python. So that's the first part in here, right? So then the subsequent part is like how we can write better code. So let me probably I'll leave this one and create a new file. So here I'm going to write I'm going to write a function which is going to help me to like reverse a string, or maybe start with like we'll start with a simple example like a reversing a string, right? So I'll call it as a reverse string .python. So the idea here is I want to get an input from the user and basically like take that input and I want to reverse that. So basically if I have like hello, then it has to just it's HELLO. It has to reverse it saying like a zero, like OLLEH, and it has to print it in that fashion. So I need to write a piece of code to do that, right? So how can I convey that through my prompt so that the GitHub Copilot is going to write the code for me? So similarly, control I say like write some code to accept a string and print the reverse of the string. So that should be fine. So we are asking it to write some code to accept a string and then prevent the reverse of that string. And then we'll just go ahead and ask Copilot to write the code for that. Cool. So if you look at it here, it has written a function which is reverse string. And then it is actually asking a user to input a string. And then what we are getting is like the printed version of the reverse string. And main is the actual. So because this is a function, right? So the function needs to be called, and this is the main section in a Python code. And it is actually calling the reverse string. So this is how the code has been written, and it is going to work. So this is pretty cool, right? Suppose like if I want to just get in terms of like, okay, this is all nice and good. So how do I make sure like to get more help from GitHub Copilot to write much more complicated code. So this is like a simple code, like it is all about reversing string. So maybe I may just going to go and change it to, I'll create a file to say, I want to give multiple options. One is to reverse a string, one is to finding out a prime number. So there is a different combinations I want to give for my users to choose. And depending on the combination they are choosing, that particular functionality needs to be executed. So we'll make it a little bit more complex. So I'll call it as a multi-options.py. And in this multi-options.py, and I'm going to go and give a bit more complicated scenario saying write some code to provide options for the user to choose to either reverse a string, calculate the number of letters in a string. So if you give a letter like a alphabet A or something, and then and if you give a string, it is going to just find out how many times A has appeared in there. So then we can also say like, okay, so if you want to just find a prime number from a given set of numbers. Cool. So let us keep that. So we are going to ask it to do multiple things in here. And then depending on the option the user is going to choose, that particular function needs to execute. So pretty much like if you think about this scenario, right, we have to write a bit of code and we need to just come up with the functions and as well as to do that. So I'm not saying like this is difficult, but what it is like if we have to write it, it is going to take time, right? But with Copilot, I can just give this as a prompt. And now I can go ahead and ask it to execute the prompt, and I can see like what it is going to bring it to me in terms of the version here. So that is the cool part with the GitHub Copilot. So as you can see here, right, it wrote the piece of code. I'll just accept it so you can get to see. So I have an option here in terms of reversing the string. And also like I have an option here in terms of like counting the letters, and where it takes up a string as well as the letter, and it is counting how many times that particular letter has appeared in here. And then you can see like finding the prime numbers for a given set of numbers. So here I'm inputting, asking an input in terms of the numbers separated by spaces, and then I pass those numbers to find the prime numbers. So as you can see, all the three things, and it also like picked up like I want the user to choose an option. So it framed up the different options and it gave the choice for the user to pick up the option, and depending on the option that they are choosing, and it is validating, and including it has considered like an invalid choice also here. So as you can see here, like it is not about just a simple example like, okay, reverse a string or something. So it can do much more complicated scenarios like this. One common scenario which will be really valuable in your day-to-day development lifecycle that you're doing is validations. There is a lot of validation code we write. So any application that you are developing, right, you have to write one form or the other way of validating the code. So let us write something which is around validating email.python. So here I need to write a piece of code where I have to validate whether a particular string is an email address. So the key requirements, if you look at it, right, like normally an email address will have at least one at the exactly one at the rate symbol. The domain must contain a dot, no spaces should be in there. So there are some examples like for what is considered as valid email versus what are considered as invalid email. So you will be able to just go ahead and pretty much provide that information in there. So what we can do is like we will go and write a piece of, I'm going to write a piece of comment here. So as you can see here, I'm just if you notice it here, automatically some code is coming, right? So I haven't done anything here. I just wrote a comment saying write validate email as a function, and basically like it needs to return a boolean value. The requirement says it must contain exactly one at the rate symbol. Domain must contain a dot, and it shouldn't have any spaces. These are some of the valid examples, and these are some invalid examples, and it automatically wrote the function for me. So I didn't even do anything. So it just says like, oh, okay, based on the comments that you have provided, here is the code. Do you want to accept the code? Okay, I'll accept it. And there you go. The function is pre-written for me. So as you can see here, right, you can just make it to write any sort of these functions by writing just a comment. So GitHub Copilot is clever enough. So when you write a comment, it knows automatically like how it has to take the comment and expand it. And this is what we told like an autocomplete, or it understands the context and it is going to complete things for you. And that's what exactly I was highlighting in here. So we saw a variety of examples, right? Starting from a simple reversing a string to a much more multi-option scenario where we had the option of reversing a string or finding the prime number, or like a finding the number of times a letter is repeated in a string, uh, all based on like by providing a prompt. If you look at it, for all these examples that I have showcased till now, I didn't even write a single line of code. I don't know whether you observed it or not. I just wrote the comment, I wrote the prompt, but I never wrote any lines of code in here. So basically what you get to see here is like the flow of how you can pretty much use GitHub Copilot effectively without writing single line of code. And that's why it is really important, you have to frame your prompts really well, because if you don't frame the prompt really well, then probably you're not sure about how GitHub Copilot is going to be uh, utilizing it. A classic example which I normally tell my participants is suppose like if you're going to GitHub Copilot, in this case, it is context aware because I have already got a folder with a list of Python files. But if you start a folder from scratch without any files, right? Without any extensions or anything, GitHub Copilot doesn't even know what is the piece of code in which programming language you are going to write. So in that time, you are just going to say like, okay, write a piece of code to print hello world. It is going to pick any random language. It is not going to pick Python or C Sharp. So that's why you have to be, in that case, you have to be clear in your prompt to say, if you haven't saved the file with any extension, probably you have to tell GitHub Copilot to say, okay, write the piece of code in Python or write the piece of code in what we have called is like in the language that we want it to be written. Maybe I can show you an example in here, right? So let me go ahead and create a new file. And so it is a demo.txt file. So I didn't give any clue whether it is a Python file, whether it's a C# file or anything. So here I'm going to use Control I and say, write some code to create a storage account on Azure portal. Okay, so on Azure itself. Cool. So let us go and execute this piece of code. Great. So what do you notice here? It used the AZ CLI to create the storage account. So neither Python nor any other programming language, because I didn't specifically mention in which language it needs to be written. So I just gave the option, so which means it randomly chose like, okay, I'll use the AZ CLI in order to create the storage account. If I remove this and go back to Control I and say creates code, here we can write some code to create a storage account on Azure using Terraform. Cool. So what was previously done is because I didn't specify the programming language, it randomly picked up a programming language and it gave the output. So it still gave the output, but this is what I talk about prompt engineering is all about. So when I was writing the prompt, I was assuming I'm going to get the output in Terraform, but I didn't convey exactly to Copilot that I want the output in Terraform, right? So if you don't convey that, because the file is a TXT file, so there is no way it knows like whether it's a Terraform or not. If I had a .tf extension for the file, at least it would have guessed that I'm expecting that in Terraform format. Because I didn't give that contextual clue to Copilot, right? I kept it as a TXT file, just a plain text file, just not to give that clue to Copilot. And then what I asked in the prompt was to write some code without specifying in which language I want the code to be written. But now I have just specified the language in Terraform. As soon as I provided the language in Terraform, it provided me the output in Terraform. And this is what I talk about, like when I talk about prompt engineering, this is what I'm stressing. So every time, if you have to convey what you have got in your mind to Copilot, you can do that only through prompt engineering. And a lot of people I have noticed like they get fed up in terms of like, okay, I'm not getting the expected results from Copilot. Copilot is not that great and so on. But I will be going and challenging them to say like, okay, tell me what is the prompt you wrote, and I will rephrase the prompt, and sometimes like they will be surprised because I'll be able to get the results. So it's all about how you frame your prompts. And that's why most of my participants who are attending my session, like I tell them, prompt engineering is an art. It is not a science. So it is not like it. You will get it by practice. So you have to write some prompts, keep writing some prompts, and you have to compare the results, and then you can always tweak the prompts. I pretty much get familiarized with that. Is like the more I just, oh, okay, I'm not getting my desired output, tweak the prompt, and then I will start. Once I start getting it, I know exactly how to phrase my prompt subsequently. Maybe the first time it may take me 5 attempts. The second time it may take like 3 attempts. The third time it may be 1 attempt, because I will get to the process of, okay, so how much I have to provide in my prompt in order to get the right response from GitHub Copilot. So just keep that tip in your mind because that's really important. And prompt engineering techniques is exactly telling in which programming language you want, and like telling what type of output you want. Sometimes you want Copilot to generate a CSV file or Copilot to generate a JSON file. So be specific in terms of exactly what is the format or what is the type of output that you are expecting from that. So if you are particular about that, and Copilot is going to give the response in the right fashion. Cool. So that's pretty much what we say in terms of prompt engineering. So just to wrap it up before I move on to the next slide, prompt engineering is really an important aspect when it comes to generative AI. Not only just with GitHub Copilot, any sort of copilots that you are using, prompt engineering is a technique that you have to apply. And that's why like writing good prompts is an important technique that you have to build. And as I said, right, it is an art and you have to practice in order to just get into perfection of writing better prompts. So that's why I will definitely encourage you. So to attempt writing good prompts. And how do you write good prompts? By putting things into practice. Ask the question, refine the prompt if you're not getting the right response that you are having in your mind. And it's all about when you, before you even write your prompt, think about what you want and how do you communicate it clearly to GitHub Copilot. And that's the important thing that you need to learn about prompt engineering. So moving on from that, we talked about the GitHub Copilot, what it can do. It can write code, it can understand things, but also like I want to just to talk about context aware suggestions. So When I showed you an example, right? So where I opened a file with a Python extension, it knows it has to write Python code. And then when I put a TXT file, I didn't give any clue because it doesn't know exactly what I'm trying to write there. So Copilot doesn't work line by line. It understands your the file that you have opened, or sometimes it will understand the multiple files that you have opened within the workspace. And sometimes if you start writing some code in an existing file, it will start to look at what is the coding style that you have used or coding patterns that you have used in other files in terms of variable naming, how you are formatting your preferences. So it is going to learn those things from the other files that you have got in that workspace, and it is going to apply that in here. And so this is where Copilot is really good in terms of adapting to your coding style and conventions. And also like it is learning, right? So sometimes like you will, if you didn't open any files, or if you're just opening a brand new workspace without any files, like what I did in my demo, probably like it is going to give you some best practice suggestions. But of course, like you can guide Copilot by saying, yes, I accept it, or no, I want you to name all my variables in camel case versus Pascal case. Like you can specify that to Copilot, and Copilot can improvise based on that. And as I said, Copilot doesn't just stick with one file. It can easily reference with multiple files, and that's what it is. So if you have multiple files opened, then probably like a Copilot will be able to just do things across multiple files. So let us quickly look at that, right? So if I get back into my demos here, so what we are talking here about, like Copilot is capable of understanding the context, and also it will use things based on the way how we want to keep everything intact in right. So let us create. I'm going to create a models.python file. So in this models.python file, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a class which has got a bit of a definition about like the type of variables I would like to use. So let me paste my code here. So I have got an user profile class here, and then I have got a user ID, display name, as well as an email, just to give you to start with. And I'll keep this file open. So let me close down the other files. And now I'm going to create a new file called repo.python. And in the repo.python, and I'm going to write, I want to write a repository class. So I want to just write some comment in here saying write a repository class, user profile repository with in-memory storage, and I need the functions for add user, which is basically using the user profile information, and the get user ID, and as well as like a find by email. So as you can see here, what it does is like it is actually written the code for me, and also like it is basically like utilizing the capable information coming from the user profile class. So if I just accept this, right? Cool. So this is going to just say like, okay, I'm using your user profile class, and I'm going to just go ahead and do that. So you can say like, okay, fix this using Copilot. Cool. So it is just utilizing in here. So the key part here is like it can either refer to the model, or it is now saying like, okay, I'm going to reference a user profile class in here to make it really easier for using things in here. So that's the key part. So the models has got a user profile class if you need, or if you can see here automatically, like it picked up like, okay, I can see a user profile in there. So what I want to do is I want to just go ahead and utilize it, and I can just utilize the user profile information that was already provided. So the key part here is all about the naming conventions, right? Because it had a model already which had some naming conventions, and the repo learned from that, and it was using the similar naming conventions in here. So this is the key part in here. So Copilot will use the open files and identifiers to match that. So if you're asking it to write code for a new file, it will go and scan through the existing files. It will learn the approach in terms of what you have already done in those files, and it is going to be repeating in here. And that is the cool part in here. So another thing you can also do with Copilot is the Copilot chat. So suppose like I want to just say like I want to include like author name, version number, some attributes, generic attributes, right? And I want to do that on all the files in the Python. So I can go in the chat and say add generic attributes right at the top of each Python file that includes the author, version, and date information as commands, and probably we can also add the description. And then we can just go ahead and just send this message. So basically we are asking to add some generic attributes right at the top of the each Python file as commands. And so as you can see, it is going to look for all the different Python files. It shortlisted all the Python files, and then it is going to go ahead and apply that information across. So it has read the files, and it has also now making sure it is going to add the author, version, description, and date. And one of the cool thing about the chat that you are seeing here, right, it is showing you step by step. So it is running in agent mode, and it is also showing you step by step in terms of everything that is required for you to run in here. So if you start noticing, now my hello world.python has got the author, version, description, as well as the date information in there. Excellent. So if you look at my models.python, that has got the models available. And if you look at it, right, the description, it has predefined the description by itself, because if you look at the step here, it spent the time reading about the code. The time it user used to read the code is mainly because to come up with a description in here. And that is the key part. So by looking at the description, it was able to just get the information. And as you can see here, like it also like applied all the necessary details that we wanted in all the files. So here, if I look at it, like I have got all the files listed in here, all and specifically all the Python files. There is a demo.txt. In the list of files it read, because I specifically mentioned I need this to be added only to the Python files. It just paid attention to that, and it just retrieved only the Python files in here. So now you have quite a good idea around like the list of the Python files that are available, and that it is basically utilizing in here. Cool. So that is all good. So now if we move across all the different files, now you have got all the common attributes that we are looking for. And this is pretty good, because especially if you are working in an enterprise scenario where you have got n number of files that are open, and if you want to reference multiple files together for some functionality, or if you have to apply some common attributes that what we are talking here about, now you can apply that across all the files within your like a project repository, right? That is the cool part in here. And keep in mind, just because it added all these things, it doesn't mean it applied them. It gave you a suggestion, and it says like, do you want to keep the changes I have proposed, or do you want to undo it? So you don't want those changes. So I'm going to say, no, I want to keep it across all the files. Now you can see now my files are all having the consistent header right at the top. Not only this, writing it for the first time, but if I want to change the headers, or if I want to include additional attributes to the headers, I can go ahead and now easily do that with the help of the Copilot chat. So the main reason I am just trying to show here is like you can reference only one file, like here we reference only the set of Python files, not the txt file. So you can say reference only one file, or you can just even reference the file pattern and say like, okay, these are the files I'm interested, and this is what I want you to work on with the as part of the changes to the file. You can specifically say that to GitHub Copilot, and Copilot will make that changes available for you. And this is what we talk about context awareness. So context awareness is nothing but so just making sure like GitHub Copilots understand what you are trying to do. So are you working in a Python workspace? Are you working in a C# workspace? Are you working in a PowerShell workspace? So accordingly, it is going to apply the necessary changes depending on whichever environment that you are working with. Okay, cool. So we saw the context aware suggestions and we looked at like whether how Copilot works fine in whether it is in a single scenario or a multi scenario examples. And keep in mind these context like the awareness Copilot will learn about it over time. So it's not that like it is going to it will know everything right at the first time. The more you write, so sometimes like you may have one file in the workspace, then subsequently you may have 10 files in the workspace. So Copilot is going to keep on updating its knowledge based on the new files that you are creating. And that's why I always say to people like if you're starting something from scratch, a workspace from scratch, probably like Copilot will learn as you provide more examples, right? But if you're working on an enterprise repository which has already got 50 files or something, it's much more easier for Copilot because already you have code written, the patterns are there. Copilot can take those patterns and any new code it is going to write, it is going to apply those patterns to that new code. So that is something to keep in mind because it is going to learn as it goes, especially it is not about learning how to write code. It is more around how to write code that matches to your coding style, your conventions and stuff. And that's what when I say it is going to take some time for it to learn, depending on how many files that you have got it available in your workspace or how detailed you are providing the prompt for Copilot to understand and provide you an output in that similar fashion. So hopefully you got that point, and that is the key aspect when it comes to context aware suggestions. I want to just highlight one particular question here, which commonly I get asked when I touch on context-aware suggestions is, how about naming standards, Anupama? Because our organization has got some common naming standards, whether it's variable, whether it's a file name, or whether it's a class name. So we want our naming standards to be followed. Is there a way how we can feed in the naming standards to Copilot, or how does that work? It is a great question, and that's where I was talking about. Of course, you can provide your naming standards as part of the prompt to say, I want the class names to follow these standards, or I want the file name to be following these standards, and Copilot will learn from it. Or the other way is what I told, right? If you have already implemented files in that workspace, which is already following the naming standards, you don't need to repeat that because Copilot is good to learn. But if you're starting a workspace from scratch, probably until you build up files with that naming conventions, you may need to provide that to Copilot. So that is something to understand. So key part is really like how you will be using Copilot. So whether it is a single workspace with no files, then you specify the standards in the prompt. But if you have already got enough files which is following the standards already, Copilot will learn from those files which is already available in the workspace. So common question, I thought like I will just pitch it in here because it is important to know how you can make Copilot to understand your naming conventions and standards. That we are going to go on a short break.
Thank you so much, Anupama. Hello, everyone. I am Ria, and now I would like to take over and go through the badge redemption part. I'm excited to announce that all the participants in today's masterclass have been given free exclusive access to Easy 2007 courseware. And the best part is you also get to claim your digital achievement badges on Microsoft Learn to Celebrate Your Fundamental Scaling Journey. Issued by Microsoft, these badges can help you highlight your newly acquired skills and boost your career potential. Let's take a quick look at the steps that you need to follow. So on right hand side, you can see a QR, and if you have your mobile phone handy, you can just scan this and you can easily use our mobile phone landing page to redeem your courseware and certificates. And if currently you are on your PC or laptop, this button over here, this is a clickable button. By clicking on this, you can easily redeem your courseware and certificates. Let's quickly see 3 steps that you need to follow to redeem your courseware and certificates. So step number 1, sign into your Microsoft Learner account using your personal or professional Outlook or Hotmail account. And if you already signed in, you will directly be seeing step 2 with redeem your code dialog already pre-filled over there. So this button over here, this is also a clickable button. By clicking on this, you can also redeem your courseware and certificate. So step number 2 is your unique code will already be pre-filled. Over here, you don't need to add anything. You just need to click on redeem button to redeem your courseware and certificates. So step number 3 is you will receive a message indicating that your achievement has been added to your profile. You just need to click on this view profile button, and now you can access your Microsoft official courseware module from the training tab. So I'll quickly show you an example of how your redemption page would look like. So to generate or download your certificates, you need to follow 3 steps. First, we'll click on achievements, then learning paths, and you can see the sprinter icon over here. By clicking on this, we can generate or download your certificates. After downloading your certificates, you can showcase your achievement on your social media, your LinkedIn, and don't forget to tag Netcom Learning with that. And if you have any query regarding the badge redemption part, our team is there in chat. We'll help you with that. And with that, I would like to leave you for the break. Thank you so much, everyone.
Sure, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, but before we do that, we are going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's cover the remaining part of the session. Cool. The next topic we are going to look at is Copilot for Teams. So as I told you, right, so when I talk about Teams, I'm not talking here about Microsoft Teams. I'm talking here about a group of people or your team, basically. So that the group of people that you work with, and that's really important. So this is mainly to showcase like how you can use GitHub Copilot to improve not only your productivity, but also your team's productivity, because that is really important. So the key part, like I wanted to highlight in here, right? So importantly, you need to start looking at like, okay, so what is the typical SDLC process? So typical SDLC process is like we will go and get some requirements in the form of user stories. Then we take that user story and write a piece of code. Then of course, like we have to create some test cases for that user story, and then we need to, when the code is ready, we need to execute those test cases, whether to see whether it meets that criteria. And finally, like we have to have some sort of deployment of that code, right? So typically that is what we call it as the SDLC process, software development lifecycle process. And there will be many people involved as part of the software development lifecycle process, not only developers involved in the code part, but then you have got architects who will be doing design, business analysts who will be writing the user stories, test analysts who will be writing the test cases and execution of that. And then of course you have the DevOps people who will take care of the deployment aspect. So you can use GitHub Copilot in all these scenarios. So let me start talking about the developer scenario, and then when I show the demo, I'll showcase it across the different personas. When we talk about developers, one of the model that was pretty much common and we have been using in the agile space is the pair programming. So pair programming is nothing but two people will be sitting together and working on a same piece of code, same functionality. So it's not that they will be working on different functionality, they will be focused on writing the same functionality. A lot of people questioned that earlier when the agile practice came into existence. The reason for that is because why are we wasting two people trying to do the same thing? Because we are wasting one person's time, right? Which is not the case. They saw there is an increase in productivity and the quality of the output was really good when they did pair programming. The reason is one person can start looking at writing the code, the other person will be contributing for some additional ideas around, or did you take care of this, or what about this? So this conversational discussion that happens between those two paired programmers helped to in terms of improve the productivity as well as the quality of the code that they were generating. Now, with the help of GitHub Copilot, we can still continue with that pair programming technique. But the key part here to understand is your AI will be one programmer and then the human will be the other programmer. So now you can still go with the pair programming, and we are going to use one human with AI. So if AI writes the code, then the developer, the human can go and review the code. If the human writes the code, and AI can go ahead and review the code. And that is the important part to understand, because AI is not about just writing the code. It can also review an existing code and it can provide you suggestions. And we'll talk about that in the next part. But coming back to Copilot for Teams, pair programming concept, you can still continue doing that with the help of like AI doing one part of the programming aspect and then human doing the other. With the help of GitHub Copilot, you can also bring teams really fast and to understand about the code base. Suppose like if you have like a repository, like where you can go and say like, oh, what is this workspace is all about, or what is this project is all about? And Copilot will give a quick introduction and also an outline to your users depending on the code base that they have opened with. And also like prompt sharing and best practices. Like for instance, like if you're in a team environment, not everyone needs to know how to write prompts, right? So if a prompt that is working, you can start sharing the prompts with your team, and pretty much they will be able to just go ahead and utilize those prompts. So let us put these things into practice, right? And as I told you, I'm going to walk you through the mode of a software development lifecycle and how the different personas within the software development lifecycle can utilize GitHub Copilot. So let me get back to my VS Code here. Cool. So the first thing I'm going to ask VS Code to do is I'm a BA and I want to write a user story. And I want to write a user story with some good acceptance criteria. So I'm going to offload that work to GitHub Copilot. So I'm going to ask GitHub Copilot to write a user story to create an API to create, update, read, and delete users from a users table with attributes like first name, surname, address, email address, phone, website. Also provide acceptance criteria for this story. I'm going to ask for a detailed acceptance criteria. And group them under categories. Sometimes you may not be able to get this prompt in one attempt. And as I told you as part of prompt engineering, right? It's okay. It's not a big deal. You'll be able to just fine tune your prompt as you go along. So let us publish this prompt. So as you can see here, right? So now I have given the prompt. It is actually writing a user story for me with the detailed acceptance criteria. Across all the different operations, like whether it's a create, update, delete, or everything that we are doing. Excellent. So add the above user story to user story.md file. So it is going to create a user story.md file, and it is going to add the user story with that acceptance criteria that I have. It has drafted already. So let us wait until it creates that file. So this is good because like now you will be able to start writing the entire user story. And as you can see here, my user story has been written. And now I can say keep. There you go. My work is done. So as a business analyst, I can now quickly draft my user stories. So as long as I know like what is the prompt I need to provide to GitHub Copilot, now I can get my user story drafted quite easily. So that job is done. So the next persona that comes into the picture is like, okay, so as design person. So it's not only we will deal with one story, right? So if you are a architect, you may need to do design based on a variety of things. So because we have just only one user story, I will hold on the architect role a little bit. And so what I will do is like, okay, maybe we can ask a recommendation on come up with a design in how to implement this particular user story in Python. Maybe we can ask that question to Copilot. Okay, so come up with a design on how to implement the user story in Python. So it is now going to create a detailed design document that covers the architecture, the technology stack, and the implementation approach for this user story. So this is one of the things the key architects really do. So what we are now expecting is Copilot to go ahead and do that and provide that information to us. So the key part I'm trying to highlight here is, right, so when everyone thinks about GitHub Copilot, everyone thinks about it is only for developers, which is not the case. So you have the different personas in software development lifecycle. Each one can tailor the Copilot to their needs. And that's why whenever I just run through any GitHub training sessions, I tell to people, it's not about just improving developer productivity. You can use GitHub Copilot to improve the entire organization's productivity because it caters for the different personas in here. So as you can see here, it has created a design.md file and it has said like, okay, so the technology stack, you can use it this, the database and the like a object relational mapping tool that you can use this. And it also specifies like the project structure, how you want to use it and so on. And including it has created the core components that are required. Cool. So it has even written this. Normally the design people doesn't do the writing of the code, but at least this gives an idea. So what I can now do is, okay, great. So now I got a design and I have got a user story. So now I will go ahead and create the, or implement the user story in the current workspace. Following the design.md. So now we are going to just implement this users.API. So as you can see, it created the users.api, start to create some of the files in there. So we'll wait for that to be created. So as you can see, as the files are getting done and the folders are getting populated in here. Cool. So it has been implementing the folder. So basically what it is trying to do is the design specified what type of the folder structure that we require, and it is going ahead and implementing that. And that's what you're getting to see here. So create a users underscore API folder, then it has the app folder, the test folder, all the test related artifacts are sitting inside the test folder. And if you look at the app, it is providing all the app related artifacts in here. Cool. So that's what you're getting to see here. So we'll just wait and it is going to complete it in a few minutes. So what it just gets you is right. So the entire structure of how you want your user story to be implemented, you can get the design drafted by Copilot, and also you can implement the get the implementation done by Copilot following the design that was already provided. So the interesting part is none of this has been, I haven't even written a single line of code. So if you notice it, like everything is driven through prompt. So not even a single line of code has been written. So you can already starting to see how many files I'm generating in here and how it is going to happen. So it is creating the configuration, the database connections, the data model, the pedantic schemas, what needs to be created, and also it is going to create the repositories and the relevant API functions to implement that. So I can get it to continue. Now it is working on the CRUD operations. And the cool part here is, right, so it is doing it step by step, showcasing to you like what it is trying to do. So at any point in time, if you're not clear about, like if you get a whole heap of files created, right, but instead it is just telling you like I'm creating the CRUD operations now, I'm creating the exception handling, I've been creating your folder structure currently, and then all the files related to the folder structure. It grows everything through that brief, and that's what you're getting to see here. And the different endpoints finally. And the cool part here is it will also populate the test cases. So like here we are talking here about unit tests, like what are the different tests that needs to be written for this particular CRUD operations. So as you can see here, right, it is now writing all the different files based on the inputs that I have provided. So as you can see, right, so you got the point. So here I drafted the user story with the help of GitHub Copilot. I drafted the design with the help of GitHub Copilot, and also like I made Copilot to do the implementation also. So it is not just me doing it, and including like if you need Docker capability, it also created the Docker configuration and also the environment file templates that you require and so on. So the cool part here is you can pick and choose which files you want to keep or whether it needs to be tweaked further. And now it started to populate the basic tests that are required in order to test this particular application. And then it is going to also complete it. So the rationale behind this is like when you are working in software development, most of the time we spend on writing user stories and making sure like, okay, whether it is meeting the acceptance criteria or not. And we are going to validate that too. So we can quite easily validate as a developer, where especially like if I have everything in there, I can do that. And if you noticed it, it is also creating README documentation. So what it basically does is like pretty much it gives you everything that you wanted to know about how this code has been put through. So this would be really handy for someone to start, and also any dependencies for development as well as for production scenarios, they are outlined here. And there is a readme.md file. And it clearly shows how to do that. And this is pretty cool, right? So we haven't also didn't do anything. So it is right taking care of everything. So it says, okay, I will also create a startup script to make it easy for you to run the application. And also I'll create a simple script to install all the dependencies and the test. And also I'll give you a demo script so that you can put the API into action. And everything is available as part of like your readme.txt in terms of how to utilize them. I'll just close them. And then it is finally showing you a summary of what are all the aspects that has been implemented. And don't worry about it, because this is the first file we are creating in the workspace, right? So that's why it has to set up the folder structure and quite a few things. So it took some time. But the subsequent ones, when you're adding additional endpoints and stuff as part of the user stories, it is going to be pretty straightforward because it will reuse a lot of the things that it has already developed. So while it is doing that, let us look at a few more points before I come back and show you the completed aspect. So keep in mind, Copilot for Teams is, when we talk about that, this is like a different parts of the SDLC lifecycle. So the different personas, they can pretty much use that. And you will be able to use Copilot to just improve the productivity gains and also improve the consistency of your code base. And also like you can, Copilot will also advise you in terms of how to apply security patterns to your code. And it still facilitates the pair programming where AI is going to be one of the programmer. And also it encourages like a prompt sharing as well as following best practices. So if you look at here, right, so now I have got the entire code completed. So I'm going to say keep everything. Cool. So one of the thing I can validate is like, okay, give me a quick confirmation whether the implemented code meets the acceptance criteria of the user story defined in userstory.md file. So basically what I'm asking is, can you confirm me whether the code that has been implemented actually meets acceptance criteria as defined in my user story.md. So what it is going to do is it is going to analyze the code, and also it will read the user story.md file and says like, okay, so now I understand what is the acceptance criteria. And now I'll check the implementation to see whether it meets your acceptance criteria. And this is really important, especially for developers, right? If you're writing a piece of code, sometimes you have to have that traceability, right? To say like, have I implemented every single acceptance criteria that is outlined in the story? And then it is like, if you have any missing, it needs to be fixed also. So if you notice here, now it has picked up to say, I notice there is a missing company.py schema file. Let me create it to complete the implementation. It is creating it. And also like it gives you a confirmation. And it tells you like what are the areas it is confirming also, saying, okay, so now here is the confirmation. The implementation meets all the acceptance criteria. And these are all the criteria category. And as you can see, it is fully met or whether it is partially met. And so then you can also see it really clearly in here. So it is 95% compliance. And of course, we can look at what is that 5% and we can tweak it. But what it is trying to say is now I have, as a developer, right, with full confidence, I can release my code because I know like a majority I am complying with the acceptance criteria. So the next persona that comes into this process is your testers, right? Test analyst. So what does the test analyst need to do? They have to write test cases that matches the acceptance criteria of the user story. So let us ask that create test cases in test cases.md file that for the acceptance criteria specified in the what we can do is we can use that file, which is the user story.md file. So now I want test cases to be created. Again, you know, like how much time test analysts have to spend because they have to come up with all the permutations and combinations when it comes to testing the acceptance criteria, right? So now this is going to create some detailed test cases in the test cases.md file so that pretty much we can use it. And keep in mind, everything I'm putting it in an MD file, right? So for instance, some questions that would have been going in your mind is, I have got users Jira to capture user stories or Azure DevOps to capture user stories. Do I really need to capture in GitHub, or can I reference the stories coming from Jira or like Azure DevOps? You can do that. So your user stories doesn't need to live inside the GitHub workspace. It can sit outside GitHub, but GitHub Copilot, but we have to establish that connectivity for GitHub Copilot to reach out to your user stories that is in Jira. Then you can just specify the story number and GitHub Copilot can go retrieve the story and then it can write code based on that story or write test cases based on that story. So that's definitely feasible. So that is something just for you to keep that in mind. So here what it does is it is going through the user story and it is going to create the acceptance criteria. Based on the acceptance criteria, it's going to create the test cases, relevant test cases for that. So while that is doing, I wanted to quickly just talk about something. So let us look at the next topic around reducing the development time and improving the quality. So where does Copilot, GitHub Copilot is really handy? As you saw, right? It automates repetitive coding tasks. So if I have to, one of the example which I showed you, I have to write the header information for all my files. So if I have to do this manually, I have to go and open it and I have to write a description that is specific to each and every file. With GitHub Copilot, it automatically did that for me. And it reduces time spent on boilerplate code. So if it is like a repeated code that is mainly configuration driven or something, GitHub Copilot will be able to do that. It improves the readability and maintainability. So the thing is like you can add ask GitHub to document existing code, and we saw that how it created the readme.md file, right? It implemented the code and also it created the documentation related to that. You can ask GitHub Copilot not only to do that, it can write comments to your code It can actually write unit tests to your code. So it can do much more than just writing code. The other cool thing GitHub Copilot can also do is if you have some bugs in the code, you can just ask GitHub Copilot to fix the bug as well as or come up with recommendations as well as apply those recommendations in the code files. And if you're thinking about prototyping, so see how quickly I was able to create a user API, right? So I didn't spend a lot of time within a day, like as long as I know what is a user story. And even I drafted the Copilot, made Copilot to draft the user story. I was able to get the examples at what I required. Cool. So here is our output in terms of the comprehensive test cases that it was working on. So as you can see, there are 9 test categories covering all the acceptance criteria. So you have the data model and validation tests. And also it ran the test across the entire repository. So you can see there were a total of 63 test cases. Passed is 60. Partial is authentication framework is ready, but it has not been implemented. And overall coverage is 95%. And you can see how detailed the test cases are. And you can pretty much load these test cases directly into your suite, like whether it's again a Jira or DevOps doesn't really matter. But what it is giving you the idea is what is the total, the coverage you have got in with your test cases. So this is just the execution of that, but you can ask it to draft the test cases based on user story, and then you can also get it to execute it. So now you understand, right? So we have touched here the entire software development lifecycle, starting from writing a user story to design to development all the way to testing. And now when it comes to deployment, you can also get the relevant steps that you need to deploy the solution. We already got that in our README, but we can ask Copilot to even write it. So you can keep this and say, create a deploy.md file to deploy this solution on Azure Cloud. So let us put we'll want to put this solution onto Azure Cloud. And now this is going to create all the deployment artifacts that we require. So there is a deployment guide, which is going to look at how to deploy the user CRUD API to the Azure Cloud. And it will have the multiple deployment options along with the step-by-step instructions. So as you can see here, the different personas, that is the key idea here. So when I talk about Copilot for Teams, that's what I talked about. So take the entire software development lifecycle, and what you will be able to get to see here is you will be able to see how you can use GitHub Copilot to use it for the different aspects of software development lifecycle. And also Copilot can be used by different personas. So whenever I show this demo to a lot of the different personas other than developers, right, they really feel happy because now they can write things in an elaborative way using GitHub Copilot. And another cool thing the developers really are comfortable or happy with is because now they have the ability to validate whether how much of their code actually implements the acceptance criteria that is defined in their user stories. Just one thing I wanted to talk about before I wrap up this particular topic is, as I said, your user stories or whether your test cases, they don't need to live inside the GitHub workspace. It can sit in Jira, or it can sit in Azure DevOps, doesn't matter. So we can easily pull through that via GitHub Copilot. We need to just establish that integration alone. Once you establish that integration, Copilot can talk to Jira, get the user story, and then it can validate whether your code has implemented that or not. So some of the best practices that you have to keep into consideration, especially when you're working with Copilot, is always review the AI generated code before committing. So I just accepted it because it was a demo, right? But normally in a production scenario or in a normal enterprise scenario, I'll be looking at each code that it has generated and see whether it meets our organization standards before I accept it. And also combine that with unit testing and code review. So that's why I said like a pair programming is still the concept. We didn't replace both the developers with AI, right? So we still have a human there. So anything that Copilot is generating, the human can validate it, or anything the human has generated, Copilot can validate it. Still that pair programming mix is there and the human factor is going to be there. And also like don't expose any sort of secrets or proprietary code to Copilot so that you don't need to worry about it. But if you are using it in enterprise context, it is not going to be a big thing. But when you're using it in a free subscription context, so be careful around what you use it for. Use comments wherever possible. And if you're not sure about it, get Copilot to create the comments also. So here you can see the deployment is now complete. So it has created the deployment diagram. And that's a cool thing. Copilot can also, GitHub Copilot can also do diagrams. And now you can see all the options. What are the resources that are required? And then how you can just create the CI/CD pipeline setup. So everything has been well documented as well as scripted as part of here. So one of the thing I wanted to also highlight is like when you are working with code. So for instance, let us go back to your Hello World stuff, right? Or maybe the multi options. So what I can do is add commands to this file to provide a description for other developers. So basically, I'm just asking Copilot to write commands because there is no commands in the code much, right? So now I have asked it to write comprehensive commands. So it is going to add commands to this code. And as you can see, the output of that code now it has got all the helper functions and stuff. So now it says like, okay, for each and every function, it says like, okay, what is the purpose of the function, the arguments that you need to pass, what is the return values are going to be, an example of if you executed, what is the output you can expect. Same thing for finding prime numbers and stuff, and also the main. Cool. So now it provides all the comprehensive commands that you require, and you can decide whether you want to keep it up, keep each and every comment or not. So that's the key part in here. So now you have a fully documented thing. The other cool thing is also like you can provide a code and ask Copilot to write documentation. So or to explain. So explain the current code. So now it is going to, because this is the context is this is the file, which is multi-options.python because that's the one I have selected. So it knows and it is going to go ahead and it is going to explain about this code, what this code does in plain text. This is really cool because if I want to recollect my first job when I started my career, I've been given a piece of code and said, this is your requirements, Anupama, just to read the code and understand it. I didn't have Copilot at that time. So if I had GitHub Copilot, that would have made my life easier. But I had to spend time to look at each and every line of code to understand, to reverse engineer the requirements. Now with the help of Copilot, I don't need to do that because I can just give the code to Copilot and I'll ask Copilot to document it. So if you have any existing code, you can ask a Copilot to write documentation or explain about the code or to add comments to existing code if it is not there. The other thing is also like if there are any vulnerabilities. So for instance, like from a security perspective, I can say, can you identify any security vulnerabilities with the user's API code? So now I can just ask it because the Copilot wrote the code, right? So I want to make sure also like, is there any security vulnerabilities that it is that I need to take into account of? So now it is going to read through that codes and think about in this way. If you wrote the code, which can be a legacy code that you have already got, you can ask a Copilot to go ahead and you can just get that to do things in terms of like, okay, go and optimize the code or find out whether the code has got any security vulnerabilities, and it is going to detect that. So that's why I wanted to give this sample. So it's not about like we testing Copilot's code, but also we can take our legacy code and ask for any security vulnerabilities from Copilot and vice versa. We talked about unit test. As you can see here, it can write unit test also for you. So one of the good thing about software development is I love unit tests. And I like the way how unit test will help in terms of improving the code quality. But when it comes to writing unit tests, I'm a bit lazy because there is a lot of scenarios that needs to be taken into account. As soon as I saw like Copilot can write unit tests, the first thing I started implementing in my code bases is making Copilot to write the unit test for me. Okay, key part here, it says like there are some critical issues where the secret key is hard coded. And then it says there is no authentication or authorization defined. Security, there is security SQL injection potential, which we need to be fixed. So it's not about that. We can also like, it says like, okay, you have multiple critical vulnerabilities. So what you can do is we can ask a Copilot to fix these things also. It's not about finding the issues, but also fixing the issues. I'm not going to do that right now because it is going to take some time for it to complete it. But I'm just going to give you the idea in terms of like if you want to apply the prompt, can you go ahead and fix those immediate action items in the code. So if I provide this prompt, Copilot will take all these immediate action items and it will be going and fixing it in the code for me. And that is the advantage. So as you can see here, any security vulnerabilities and things like if you want to drill down. So if you are matching with OWASP rules or something, you can even give those rules and you can just ask a Copilot to scan through the code and see any code that is not complying with the rules, like it can highlight it to you. So just to repeat on that, it's not about Copilot identifying what the problem is, but also Copilot has the ability to fix the problem for you. So that is something to keep in mind. So as you can see here, these are some of the best practices that you have to keep in mind. So just to recap on some of the things that I talked about here. So keep in mind whenever you have got any sort of things around Copilot, you can generate code with Copilot. You can test, write user stories. You can write test cases. You can ask Copilot to fix any, identify any security issues as well as fix it, performance issues. If you have bugs, Copilot can fix that. And also like if you want to have documentation written or comments to be written with your code, Copilot can do that. If you want to give a piece of code and want Copilot to explain you what the code does, Copilot can do that. And just one more thing is continuously refine your prompt writing skills. So as you can see here, right? So how I was able to get everything in the first attempt itself, because I've been writing the prompts for Copilot for quite some time now. So most of my trainings and in my projects that I implement. So the more you put into practice, the more you get excelled in terms of how to write good quality prompts. So that is something to keep in mind. So with that note, like I think these are some of the best practices I really wanted to highlight. So how do I get started, right? Because that's the next part that will come into your mind. So Anupama, thanks for introducing me a lot of things about Copilot. But if I want to go ahead and learn a bit more about Copilot, where do I go about doing it? So here are some useful links that you can use. If you are going to get started with Copilot, what are the different type of licenses or the subscriptions you have got with Copilot? You can pick and choose that. Most enterprises, after we showcase the capabilities of Copilot, they go for an enterprise license. So it's always worthwhile to check with your enterprise. And I would suggest you to, because if you are going to use it for your day-to-day work, having an enterprise license is going to be valuable. But the main part is you have to showcase the productivity improvements that you can make with that to your stakeholders. Because if you're asking them to spend money, it has to be a quality spend and what they get in return for that. That's why it is really important to articulate it to them. Like it's not Copilot is used only for developers. It is also can be used across the team for all the personas involved in the software development lifecycle. How to implement GitHub Copilot using VS Code. I showed you like how you install, like you need to install VS Code, sign up for a GitHub account, and then enable the extensions. That particular URL has got step by step on how do you go about doing that. So if you are new to Copilot, if you want to start from scratch, like what I was mentioning, there is a two-part training which MS Learn provides in terms of how do you start with GitHub Copilot fundamentals step by step. And also like we have some materials around how you accelerate your app development using GitHub Copilot, how do you build applications using GitHub Copilot agent mode, and also there is a GitHub Copilot blog. So normally, typically you can use this blog for any our new updates that are coming with Copilot. So classic things would be like new models that they are introducing within GitHub Copilot. So now the GPT-5 that was announced recently, and now we have already got the preview version that is available. The another part I would ask you to try when you are getting your hands dirty with Copilot is to try asking the question and get responses from different models. Sometimes you may find some models give you better responses than other. So whether you want to try with a GPT model or whether you want to try with a different model, you can go ahead and do that. That's why you have a variety of models exposed in there. So you try with your prompts. If you're not still getting the right results that you are looking for, then probably you can always go ahead and change your model to see whether the other models are giving you some better results. So that's how I would like upskill my knowledge when it comes to GitHub Copilot. So these resources will be really handy for you. And I would definitely recommend you to use them in order to get familiarized with GitHub Copilot. Of course, I have exposed you in this webinar to a lot of aspects that you can do with GitHub Copilot. But if you want to do them in a step-by-step fashion all by yourself, these materials are going to be really valuable for you to help you in that aspect. So basically what we have learned today, we understood what GitHub Copilot is all about. I showed you what it takes to set up and integrate GitHub Copilot, basically like with any of the IDE that you have got, whether it's a VS Code or other IDEs. How to write effective prompts. Prompt engineering is an important, or I would say it's a backbone when it comes to interacting with GitHub Copilot. So you have to get familiarized around how to write good prompts. And Copilot, as I said, it is not only for an individual developer, it can excel beyond that, which is for the different personas that are associated with the entire software development lifecycle. The more they use it, the more it makes your life easier in order to write the code as well as or write quality code and also validate that. You can definitely use Copilot to boost your productivity and quality. So I showed you the different aspects of that, starting from writing comments, documentation, like a unit test, and also like helping you to fix bugs, looking for security vulnerability issues, performance issues, variety of things that you can do. So not only for productivity, but also improving the quality of your code. We saw around best practices and responsible use. So what are the key things that you have to keep into consideration, especially when you're working with GitHub Copilot, and how to efficiently and effectively get the value out of GitHub Copilot. And also finally, I shared a wealth of resources with you. So you will get access to these resources. So I would definitely recommend you to go and navigate through those resources because they have got a lot of material in detail that will help you to upskill yourself with GitHub Copilot. Cool. So thanks for attending today's webinar. Just I wanted to quickly highlight to you about some of the things around what Microsoft certification is all about and what's available for you to learn and as well as get prepared for these certifications. So when we talk about learning process, right? So one of the reason you're attending this webinar is all about like improvising or continuing with your learning aspects. That's really important. And how do you validate your learning is by getting certified. And Microsoft has got a variety of certifications. So the key benefits of the certifications is like you will be pretty much will be standing out from the rest of the crowd. So if there are 10 people applying for a role, and if you have the relevant certifications for the role, and key point to understand here is all the Microsoft certifications or role-based certifications. I don't know whether you have noticed it or not. Since 2016, Microsoft had all their certifications as role-based certifications. So if you look at the title of the certifications itself, it will be like Azure developer, Azure data scientist, or like Azure DevOps person. So it's all role-based certifications. So when you are getting your certification, that gives you that extra uh, leverage in terms of like, oh, okay, so you have got the certification than the other candidate. So probably like you will stand out there. And of course, you can earn more. And so from a normal developer to a certified developer, definitely like the pay scale is going to be different. And also like the amount of employability. So especially during recession times, like if there are more developers having equal skills, having certification is always going to give you that extra advantage that in terms of getting the role and broaden your skills. So like if you're a developer, don't just take one fundamental certification and leave that. Look at what are the different certifications that are applicable for your role. Go ahead and take that. And also socialize about your skills on different social media channels, whether it's a LinkedIn or Facebook or like on your website. So promote about that you have got these certifications, because I think now you will be able to link your certifications with LinkedIn profiles. So it's really important so that the recruiters, like they will be able to look at your profile and they will be able to know that you are certified immediately. Cool. There is a ebook that's available, which is like a Let the Data Speak. And this is mainly around how do we get the win-win of the certification. So the download link is in your event handout. So I would definitely recommend you to download this ebook and go through that. So as you can see, well-trained and certified people, they are almost 20% more productive than your normal staff. So this book is going to give you the outline around like, okay, how training is going to be really valuable. And if you take personally me, right? So I always have a training budget allocated every year to upskill myself. So not only like in topics like Copilot or something, so AI is booming everywhere. So I have to keep myself up to date with certifications, what's coming up in the market, and also like going for conferences. So I'll have at least one conference per year, one or two trainings I will be attending every year, and also like a few certifications like that are applicable to my role that I will be focusing on. And this is really important. And of course, some budget I will definitely get from my employer. And also I have a separate bucket which I have kept apart from that in terms of any additional training that I may require in order to keep myself up to date. So I will definitely recommend you to go through this book so that you will understand a bit more around why learning is a continuous process and why it is really important to keep yourself like up to date with the latest and the greatest technologies, either by self-paced or taking up like instructor-led training, and how it is going to be valuable. So the only difference is a lot of people ask the question, should I go for a self-paced or should I go for instructor led training? It depends, right? Because it's all about the time. So if you take me, sometimes I don't have the time. So to just do self-paced. But if I commit for a 5 days with an instructor-led training, then probably I committed and then I get the knowledge in 5 days. Otherwise, the typical way, if it is like, oh, okay, I will read it in my leisure, it will go for months and months. It won't be completed at all. So that's what it's more around the discipline that will help you with instructor-led training, because you will get there, do the hands-on labs and finish your training and then get certified. So more quicker, unless and until if you're doing it in self-paced, as long as you have that discipline, you block 1 week and you complete it in that week or 2 weeks, then it's good. Otherwise, I would definitely recommend you to go for instructor-led training courses. Cool. And grow your business as well as your career with role-based certification. So this is what I talked about. And like Netcom offers you a full fledged training, like instructor-led training, and most of the instructors from Netcom, so they bring in a lot of practical aspects into their training. So it's not about the theoretical things. So in terms of practically what is going to work, what doesn't work, and how do you approach it in all these technologies in your real life scenarios, and that's what you get as part of that. Not only that, you get 180-day access for all the labs. So it's you don't need to complete your labs within 5 days. Of course, if you want, you can, but if you want to repeat the labs multiple times, you have access up to 180 days. And you get a 90-day access to the recordings. So each of the instructor-led session will be recorded because Netcom knows about, like, some of the people, sometimes you get pulled over for an important call, you miss 1 hour of the session. So what it allows for the participants is, if you attend the training, basically, like, you get 90 days access to the recorded material, so you can go back and play back, or something I discussed with the trainer I couldn't recollect it, you can always go back and watch the recording to get access to that. And you also get a full access to the Netcom learner portal. So if you're taking multiple training sessions with Netcom, then probably all those training sessions are available for you so that you can go back and revisit them through the learners portal. And also, like, you have opportunities for some free repeats if you require. Maybe you want a bit more clarification on a particular topic. You can go and sit and you can attend a few sessions in order to get upskilled in that particular topic. And you get a 24/7 priority support. So if something wasn't working while you're preparing, there is always people available through the learning portal. You can reach out to them and ask for help and assistance. So I would definitely recommend, like, if you're planning to take instructor-led training, the Netcom student portal is the best way to go and take up the training so that you have all the relevant materials available for you for some extended duration. A lot of people ask this question in terms of, okay, if I take up the certification exam, how long that is valid for? So Microsoft certifications, they are valid for a year. And what happens is, after that, you may need to go back and take up the renewal exam. So the renewal one is pretty straightforward. You don't need to pay anything. It's free renewal, and you will be taking it online. So basically, like, any new topics that they have introduced, they will have some multiple choice assessment questions related to that. If you pass that assessment, it's fine. But if you miss taking up the renewal exam after 1 year, your certification will elapse. So which means you have to go back and get recertified, for which you have to pay. So that's why, if you have an existing certification, make sure that you do the free renewals, because if you miss it, you have to pay again and you have to take up the certification. And as I said, right, like, they give you large amount of reminders, like starting from 6 months, so all the way when it is really nearly close. So as I'm speaking to you, I have got a couple of renewals coming for next month. So they have been like, Microsoft will be keeping you informed through reminder emails. So as long as you don't skip those reminder emails and take your renewal exams, that is really important here. So keep in mind, you have to renew it on a year by year basis, and this will be focusing on any new topics or any new functionalities that they have introduced inside the product stack. So what's stopping you? So let us get trained and let us get certified, and that is really important. And that's what I would encourage you to do. So always, like, if you are looking for instructor-led training, so Netcom provides you with that capability, with all the features that I outlined before, and also with your instructors, capable instructors who are all Microsoft certified trainers, and also, like, most of them are having real world experience implementing these technologies in real world scenarios. Cool. So finally, it's time for us to take up some questions. So let us look at whether there are any questions that are waiting for us.
Thank you. That was very informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. And while you do that, I would like to give the presentation rights over to Sagnik, our vendor manager, to introduce you to our promotions and webinar-related courses.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Hello, everyone. So as you can see on my screen, this is the event handout that you all have received. Once again, we thank you all for taking out the time and joining our masterclass today. As part of this handout, you'd see the content section wherein the different sections within the document have been listed here, and everything is hyperlinked. So you can quickly use these links to jump to the specific section of the document. Before we proceed, it's worth mentioning that Netcom Learning, we are the proud winners of the Microsoft Partner of the Year award for 2 years in a row. So as we say, the legacy continues. In 2022, we were the Partner of the Year worldwide, and in 2023, we were the Partner of the Year for United States. And we are also a Microsoft Cloud Solutions partner. That means that we have capabilities across all the 6 solution areas recognized by Microsoft. A few more things about us. We are in the training industry for over 25 years now, having serviced over 80% of the Fortune 1000 companies, serviced 100 plus US military bases. Overall, we have trained 1 million plus professionals across 36,000 plus unique enterprises, and we enjoy a 96% recommendation rate from our customers. All our trainings on Microsoft are delivered by instructors that are certified and authorized by Microsoft. And our overall instructor pool stands at about 3,200 plus certified professionals. We are your one-stop solution for all your corporate upskilling needs with official training across every major technology and business solution provider. So as we can see over here, we are an authorized training partner for all the industry leaders across Microsoft, AWS, Cisco, CompTIA, PMI, EC Council, and others. Now, within this handout, you would also find this particular page wherein you can find the session recording. You can use the link to access the recording for today's session and revisit the concepts that were covered in today's masterclass. On this page, you'd find the link to access your complimentary courseware and the digital badges. The same landing page that we covered at the beginning of my presentation. You can find the direct access link here, and the link to which is also available on your chat on GoToWebinar. Also, all the participants will be given access to Netcom 365. It is our student portal that includes a lot of features and resources for you to take advantage of to supercharge your skilling journey. All you need to do if you're accessing it and activating it for the first time is set up your password and then you'd be good to go. We highly recommend everyone to explore our learning portal to take full advantage of all your skilling resources. Now let's quickly take a look at some of the latest offers on Microsoft trainings and certifications. First off, we have the Microsoft Quick Start program, which is applicable across the entire portfolio, encompassing Azure, Security, Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, and Power Platform. It is truly the best in class exclusive enterprise discount offering on your end-to-end Microsoft training across the official portfolio. The pricing model is quite simple and straightforward. If you have a team, if whether you are a large organization or a small organization, and you have a team to train across departments or within the same department, we have two options for you depending on your team size. If you are looking to train more than 15 learners, you would be getting a flat discounted pricing of $300 per day per learner. And of course, as the number of days for the particular training increases, the amount also increases, but you get significant savings on this. If you are having a smaller team, that is 14 learners or less, then you still are entitled to a $400 discounted flat pricing per day per learner. This really accounts to huge savings when it comes to large scale training. So we highly recommend everyone to get in touch with us, explore the offering by clicking on the link provided in this handout. And all your trainings can also be customized based on the specific projects and workloads that you and your team, your organization is working on, and our industry specific subject matter expertise encompasses a wide range of verticals, as you can see over here, from banking and financial services, healthcare, federal and state and local government, to education, energy, manufacturing, retail, consumer goods, and more. Also, we have a Netcom Plus subscription available for all the attendees. In case you are looking to have an annual subscription plan, you are comfortable learning at your own pace, a self-paced learning modality in the form of e-learning, this is the ultimate solution for your requirements, right? So you get access to 600 plus courses and 40 AI exam certifications, all at a price of only $399 per learner annually, right? So for only less than the price of a single seat, right, of a course, you get an year-long subscription model. You get an year-long access to 600 plus courses, 40 AI exam certifications, and all our trainings are recorded and they are you'd be getting the expert guidance through these e-learning modules from industry leaders who are designed to upskill professionals across all industries. So click on this link on your handout to learn more about our Netcom Plus subscription. Now, we'd like to also quickly go over some facts about Microsoft certifications. Role-based and specialty certifications tend to expire within 1 year, right? You need to maintain, in order to maintain your certification from Microsoft, you need to renew them before they expire. And the renewal process from Microsoft is really simple and easy, and it is cost effective because it's free of cost. You don't have to pay any additional fees to continue maintaining your certification, right? So please make sure to go through this insightful ebook, The Win-Win of Certification. So in case you're planning to get officially Microsoft certified on one of these role-based certifications, this is a great resource for you to know inside out about all the perks that these have to offer. Also, in case you have a team and before you commit to maybe a quick start program for training your team extensively, maybe you want to go for a test drive, right? You want to understand how it adds value to your team, whether it's the right solution for you, whether training is making business sense for your team. We have an ideal solution for you to assess that precisely, right? So for our enterprise customers with teams of 10 or more members, we have the 2 hour private group training demo as a solution, which is also customizable. So our SMEs are going to connect with you, understand what your requirements are. They're going to prepare a targeted skilling plan, and then we are going to customize a 2 hour training for your team as a demo for a more extensive training engagement in case you see the value out of it. And all of these training sessions are delivered from our top Microsoft certified trainers. So this is a great tool. Please make sure to leverage it in case you are planning to explore more training opportunities. And last but not the least, we also have a learning passport, which is our go-to tool for year-long end-to-end enterprise training requirements. It is the ultimate flexible team training package. Irrespective of where your team members are located, irrespective of which modality you need to train your team on, or on which technology or vendor you need to train your team on, the Learning Passport is the ultimate solution. You get access to 4,000 plus official courses. You get flexible fund validity of 12 months. So whatever you invest as part of your Learning a Passport account fund, we we almost doubled it, right? In case, depending on the amount that you are investing, Netcom Learning also pitches in, contributes to grow your overall fund value so you can train your team to the maximum possible amount that your funds allow you to do. So this is a great tool. Please make sure to explore it in case this is something that you are planning to deploy and you're planning to train your team on AI, Copilot, or any other solution. Also on this deck, you will find some Microsoft recommended courses related to today's topic, as well as a couple of free resources which are mapped here. We highly encourage you to explore these post the session and get in touch with us in case you have any specific skilling requirements. We would love to help you in your skilling journey. With that, please make sure to follow us for the latest updates on IT and business training through our social handles across LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And with that, we are done for the session. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Sagnik. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. Question number 1 is, how does Copilot handle proprietary code?
Cool, that's a good question. So GitHub Copilot doesn't train on your proprietary code. So for example, like when I say that, right, Copilot always is trained based on publicly available code. So when you are working with your private repository, Copilot uses that code only from a real-time context for providing suggestions. So as you saw in the example, right, so when I created a workspace and when I created some files, it is going to take those files as a reference to come up with standards and guidelines. So Copilot, so you don't need to worry about Copilot is going to take your code and it is going to train it. So if your code is sitting in private repositories, Copilot will not use it for training. Copilot always uses the code that is sitting in public repositories for the training. And also that's it is your responsibility to review any AI generated code before committing, because especially if your organization is more specific when it comes to compliance and security requirements, you can't just blindly accept all the code what Copilot is providing you. Always review the code and use it. So definitely don't worry about your private repositories, because Copilot can't scan your private repositories to train the model.
Next question, can Copilot help me with unit test creation?
Yeah, definitely. I think I showcased it as part of the demo itself. Copilot can definitely create test cases using any popular testing frameworks, whether it's XUnit, PyTest, or JUnit. If you provide the files, so if you say this is my workspace, can you write unit test for all the code that is there? Or if you want to write it only for a specific function or a specific class, you can always specify that, and Copilot will produce a test scaffold with example assertions that you can utilize it. So yeah, so as I said, right, Copilot will help you in terms of accelerating your test creation, especially the unit test. And so definitely you will be able to use Copilot for unit test creation.
Question number 3 is, what languages does it work best with?
Copilot supports a variety of languages. So, but it works with languages and frameworks where there is a lot of public code that is available. So some people come and ask me saying like, oh, what about COBOL? What about Pascal? So how much of COBOL and Pascal code that is available on GitHub public repositories? So if there is more, so the knowledge it has gained is based on what's available there in public repositories, right? So that's why if you have abundant public code available, then it will work best. So the likes of JavaScript, Python, Java, C#, Go, C++, and also it is effective with SQL, HTML, shell scripting, YAML files, configuration files, and stuff. So whereas if there is less common languages, like I said, like the COBOL stuff, the quality of the suggestions may not be that great, because it may not have a lot of examples to provide you, right? So it's only can play with what the learning that it has obtained. So that's where that's how it works basically. So modern languages or more public repositories you have got on that language, then the more suggestions you get from Copilot.
Can Copilot help me refactor existing legacy code?
Yes, so Copilot can definitely assist you with refactoring any code, whether it's legacy or modern, doesn't matter. Especially when it comes to legacy code, it will suggest you about modern syntax, cleaner patterns to use, how you can better structure your functions. And also you can just go and write some commands to say, can you refactor this code or rewrite this method to follow the solid principles? You can go ahead and do that. And so if you open an existing code workspace, write the command to refactor the code, and then you have to go and review, because you need to make sure, like any code that you are rewriting, it's typical, right? If I'm going to rewrite the code, I have to test it. Same thing, if Copilot is going to rewrite the code, it has to be also tested. So keep that in mind. And if you don't have unit test already written on that code, Copilot can do that. And that we saw, right? Like how it wrote the unit test, and also it executed the unit test accordingly, so that you were able to validate how much of the code coverage that you have got. So definitely Copilot will help you to refactor existing legacy code, and also like take the previous question someone asked, right? Which is about, can it support unit test creation? I will also make sure if the unit test doesn't exist in legacy code, I'll get Copilot to write the unit test so that I can test the changes at the same time.
And finally, can Copilot generate documentation as well as code?
Definitely. We saw that example itself, like how Copilot, so whether you're talking about inline documentation in terms of comments in the code, or whether you want to write a readme .md file in terms of tell me how to, what is the project structure or how to run this project, Copilot can do that. So Copilot can create descriptive documentation using your code, using your project structure and everything. And also like you can get it to write readme.md files, which will talk about how do I install the code, what are the steps I need to execute to run the code, and as well as like how to use the code. So any sort of things that can be done. And this is where prompt engineering comes into the picture. So make sure that you ask the right question. Exactly what is the type of document that you are expecting Copilot to generate? It will create it for you. And we saw those examples in our demos itself, like am I asking Copilot to create user story? Am I asking Copilot to explain me the code? Am I asking Copilot to write a design document for me? Or am I asking Copilot to write test cases? So be specific in your prompts so that you get the right results from GitHub Copilot.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience, as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.